All right, so we're going to try this again. I have to admit that this experiment in live coding has been somewhat difficult. I really find that I kind of have in my mind what direction I want to go when I first start up the live stream, and then it kind of derails a little bit. But we're going to keep on with this experiment for a bit longer. Welcome back. This is going to be the fourth in my tutorial creation series. Step down off my little block here. Where we're putting together a plugin that will put GitHub functionality into Pinegrow, so you won't have to exit out of Pinegrow. I'm thinking that most people that use this, at least at first, are going to be people that are used to using Pinegrow, either from the command line or using GitHub desktop, something like that. But hopefully this will do two things. One, it'll make using versioning in Pinegrow a lot easier, a lot more transparent than having to jump between different programs. And secondly, I'm hoping that it will introduce a lot of people who haven't used versioning before to using versioning in their projects. Not only is it a good practice, but for people that are newer to the industry, it also is a skill that's really great to kind of get under your belt. And this is probably a good introduction into it. All right, so one other opening thing to get out of the way. Right now, I work for Pinegrow. However, this whole video series, this tutorial series, along with the plugin that I'm creating are not supported by Pinegrow. So this is completely independent. So just wanted to make that clear. So you can get in touch with me on the forum, but please understand that this isn't an official Pinegrow product. All right, so we're going to start out with just hopefully updating our branch. I actually made an aborted attempt at this the other day and deleted this branch. Let's see if it allows us to use the name. So to create a new branch for our fourth tutorial, I'm just going to click on, and again, in case people don't realize it, I'm in Visual Studio Code. In this case, right now, I'm not using my link to Pinegrow, but there is a plugin that links Visual Studio Code to Pinegrow. But again, right now, I'm just doing straight JavaScript programming. It's being used by Pinegrow, but it's not in any way linked to Pinegrow. So to start up a new branch, I'm just going to click down here on the lower left on the branch name, and go ahead and say create a new branch. I'm really feeling like it's going to error out on me. So I turned on something called branch pruning, which should get rid of any old branch names that aren't used. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's not liking it. So we're just going to have to do the same thing that we did last time. We're going to create a new branch. But we'll go ahead and post fix it with a. All right, so now we're on. That is so not the name I wanted. Maybe I can go back and fix. No, let's change it now. Okay, tutorial 4A. So now we're ready to start working. So again, brief recap. We brought in the boilerplate, and there's links below the video for that tutorial where we did that. We created a menu using a string literal. So just backticks surrounding our HTML. We passed that to add plugin control to top bar. And what that did was it went ahead and added this menu to the top bar as soon as Pinegrow opens. We then decide so that we could create a new repo or clone an existing repo and then open those in GitHub, or at least that's the plan. We'll see how well that works out. We then wanted to be able to add a couple of additional menu items when somebody opens a project. And so we use the Pinegrow add event handler hook function that fires when you pass in different hook locations. So in this case, I'm saying add an event handler for when the project loads, and then fire this function. There's two parameters that we're not making use of. So we then went ahead and defined a variable that got this particular menu, this UL right here, that contains our menu items. Then we did, I'm just going to get rid of this console log. Then we did some various gymnastics. We created a document fragment. To that document fragment, we added 2 lists. And then for those lists, we basically set their inner HTML to be links, which are the particular menu items that we added. So now what we need to do is we need to, when the project closes down, when the user closes out of that project, we want to remove these 2 items. So we don't want the stage changes and commit changes to remain around unless somebody's within a project. So let's go ahead and put that together. So I might have mentioned in the last video, I'm not sure. I must admit that I have been working for quite some time more with jQuery, not quite so much with plain vanilla JavaScript, and definitely not as much with the Shadow DOM. So some of this manipulation is a little strange to me. So I'm pretty good at targeting things, adding click listeners, things like that. But being able to handle something so that it dynamically updates, so it updates in real time on the DOM, is something I'm still wrapping my head around a little bit. Hopefully I'm not going to have to Google too much today. All right, so let's go ahead and change this comment up. So we're just going to say removes extra menu items on, whoops, project close. Okay, so then we've got our event handler on project closed. It's going to fire a function, and now we just need to fill that function in. So first thing that we're going to want to do is go ahead and grab that target again. So we can just copy this down here. And so up here, the way we added our navigation items, our 2 new items, was we took advantage of the fact that the target menu has an attribute of children that's basically, it's an HTML collection, but basically you can manipulate it a little bit like an array, a JavaScript array. But when you come right down to it, it's definitely not an array. And the other thing that's important to remember is that it's dynamic. So as soon as you make some kind of alteration, sort of your reference points are going to change. So let's just take a look at that really quickly. And we're just going to console log the target menu again. Go ahead and I was just doing some work with the GitHub for Pinegrow, so it's probably going to give me an error. No, it didn't. Amazing. Okay. Oh, one thing I noticed though, it's not loading in my GitHub, or excuse me, not loading in the plugin. So let's do a quick inspect. Bring up the console and see what's going on. Looks good. Did I just not load it in? File, manage libraries and plugins. Okay, so it's nuked that out, so I have to reload that in. Let's navigate here. Actually, it's probably under dev. Plugin. All right, potentially loaded now. Yes, we are loaded now. So right now, I'm going to close this out and reload it. Oh, maybe it'll fire. Let's see, did it? It did. Okay, awesome. So now if we take a look at the target menu. So right now, if we look at the menu, there's these two items, divider, and then the settings item. So if we look down here at the children, which is how we added those other items, we'll see that there's a total of 4. Right now, 2 list items, the break, and then another list item. But if we look at the child nodes, so the children, this HTML collection, is something that we can manipulate to a certain extent, but it's really this node list that we have to manipulate if we want to do a dynamic change to the page. And by adding it as a template literal, what we can see is that our returns are actually acting as nodes. So in addition to this list item, which corresponds to this one, this list item, this HR, and this list item, we also have these text nodes that are in between. And so now I just want to restart Pinegrow, and then we'll take a look at that again. Go ahead and open up the test project. Now at this point we have all 4 because before we didn't have the plugin loaded before the project was open, so things didn't fire quite correctly. Now they did fire, so we have all 4 of our above the break menu items as well as the settings. Now if we go ahead and close out our project, take a look over here, what we'll see is, so now we have a total of 6 child elements we can see right here in the middle. They're the 4 list items, the break, and then the settings list item. And you can see that like before, our first 2 list items that were pre-existing that we added onto the page with our template literal are surrounded by text nodes. So text, text, text surrounding our original 2. The 2 that we added using create element do not have those text nodes, so they were inserted sort of more cleanly. Then we have the HR, another text node, the settings, and then another text node. So at any point, normally what you would do is you would target these child nodes using things like sibling, next sibling, things like that, parent node, to remove them, which is what the goal is here, to remove those 2 new items. The problem is that depending on how we manipulate this, we could, so it's simple enough. We could say, okay, take the first child, then look at its next sibling, next sibling, next sibling, next sibling, next sibling, and then remove that. The problem with that is that it is going to be very dependent on these text nodes staying there. And I'm not sure if we do some more advanced manipulation of the menu, if those are actually going to stay in place. So I think it's dangerous to target this using sort of standard node manipulation. I think we're going to be able to just target this using the actual IDs of the list items that we put in. So if we go back to our code, So both of the list items that we put in are going to have unique ID, stage changes and commit changes. So I think we can use that to actually target these. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to say, let's try this first. Document. Oops. Get element. No. Get element by ID. I don't even know if we need the target menu. Well, you know what? Since we have it, let's just go ahead and use it. Get element by ID. And then we're going to say stage changes. And then I think we can just chain this. So in the past, in order to remove a child node, you would basically have to have two different things. You'd have to identify the child node that you want removed, and you would also have to identify the parent node. And then basically what you would say is something like, then you would have to use the parent node to delete the child. Now I think you can shorthand it with just remove. I think. Does that work? Let's try it. Let's see what happens. I'm not sure I'm using remove right there. Well, no error yet. That's good. All right, and we have all of our items. Let's go ahead and close the project. Oh, we got an error. So target menu get element by ID is not a function. Okay, let's do document then. Just out of curiosity, do I look this up? Sorry, just doing a quick. Yeah, let's try that. Save that. I'm not quite sure why it doesn't want to let me search within the target menu, but I guess it's because it's a HTML collection. It kind of limits what you can do, I guess. I really need to read up more on vanilla JS manipulation of the DOM, because I'm just running into a lot of dumbness right now in my own part. So we're still okay. Close out the project. What do we got? Okay, so we're missing a one of the menu items, so we remove the stage changes. So we're not going to need this first bit here. So now we need to remove the other one. All right. So now we've basically just managed to remove, or we should be able to, if I restart this, it should remove each of those new elements that we added on when a project is open. So now the one thing that I want to know is remove is kind of funky in that it unlinks the DOM element from the parent. It doesn't really destroy it, so I don't know if it's going to create a problem when we reopen a project, if it's going to retry to load those in. I'm not sure at all, so let's give that a try. So save this. Back over to Pinegrow, reload. Open open up our project. We have all 4 up here, and then the settings. Go ahead and close the project. Just the 2 plus the settings. No errors thrown. So let's go ahead and open the project once again. And we're back to 4 and no errors thrown. So I think we're good. So we're manipulating our menu, no problem now. All right, so next up is I want to start doing the settings here. And I think one of the things I want to do is I want to go over to GitHub and talk a little bit about the tokens and how you get them. So let's go ahead and open up a new tab here. Guess we can go just to the GitHub plugin, doesn't really matter. Actually, I'll navigate back to my home page. Okay, so within GitHub, I probably actually from any of your different panels, you can go ahead up here to your profile or to your drop down up here and go to your profile. Go to settings. And then within your settings, you're going to have a whole bunch of different things that you can play around with. The one that you're going to want to go to is your developer settings. Then within the developer settings, you're going to want to go to personal access tokens. So if you have a particular application that's going to be jumping on and off of GitHub, you're going to want to authorize through the GitHub apps. OAuth is going to be used. It's going to be used in a slightly different way along with applications as well as with enterprise and certain clients. But the one you're going to want to access for this purpose to be able to upload and download repos, to be able to change repos, save them, whatever, is your personal access tokens. So you can see right now I've already made one for myself, Pinegrow plugin authentication. So to do this, you're just going to generate a new token. And then you've got to select a scope for that. So in this case, we're going to want to work with the repos, so you can select all of the different repo events that you can control. We're not going to do anything with action workflow. We're not going to do anything with packages or the package registry. We're not going to do anything, at least at this stage, with org projects. We don't need that one. We're not going to do anything with keys. We want to be able to read and write repository hooks. We're not going to, again, do anything with organization hooks. Not going to do anything with GISTs. Don't think we need to do anything with notification. We're not going to do anything with our user data. We do want to be able to delete repos, I guess. Not going to do anything with team discussions, enterprise, or GPG. So at this point, these are the ones you should have checked, I think. Repo, admin repo underscore hook, and delete underscore repo. So with those 3, you can then generate your token. Now, very importantly, once you click this, it will generate a token and display it to you. At that point, you can you should copy. I'm wrestling with this. I don't know what the best way to handle this is, but you need to copy that key someplace, that token someplace important, because you cannot get it back. So at this point, if you forget what that token is, you have to generate a brand new token. That token is, you can't recover it. So just be really careful with that. Make sure that you, sorry, I'm just having some streaming problems here. Make sure that you put that token someplace safe. And I don't have a good feeling for what the best way to manage that is. I don't really like that you're not able to recover it. I don't like the fact that you basically have to almost copy it to a Google Docs or something, and I don't know if that's the most secure. But at any point, make sure you keep track of that. So that's what we're going to use over in our settings. So the two things that we're going to need are your username and that authorization token from within the settings. Okay, so we've got our menu working right now, and we've got, or at least we have our menu displayed. It's not actually working. And we have our menu items removed on project close. So the next thing, and we talked about the token. So the next thing we're going to do is start actually having the menu function. And so in order to do that, what we need to do next is go ahead and add click listeners for our different menu items. And so right now, I think I have to think about the best way to do this, and I might take this offline to think about it, but let me talk you through what I'm thinking about. So right now we're doing this Pinegrow add plugin control to top bar, and we're setting it to always display true. I'm not sure if it will only run a function if we pass in false, or if it will also run a function if we pass in true. So what my concerns are is that we want to make sure that we don't add click listeners or try to add click listeners to these three menu items before they actually exist. So I want to make sure that we're adding our plugin control to the top bar before I'm triggering those click listeners. So if I was setting this to false and passing a function that would decide when to display this, then at that time I could also call my click listener function. But since we're not, I can't do it that way. But let's see if this will work. So we're just going to call a function, and let's just ask it to let us know if this function is firing by console logging fired to the console. So let's go ahead and save this. Pinegrow, reload. And it did. It fired right there. So even though we've got this, is our menu, and our menu is there? Yes, our menu is there with the correct items. Okay, so great. So that means because we got this back on the console log, that means once we add the menu to the top bar, we can then fire some function, or it'll fire this anonymous function. From within that anonymous function, we can fire our click listener function, our function to add those click listeners. So something like that, add initial listeners. Right now, I'm not going to bother to pass any actual parameters to it, because I don't think there's anything we're going to need to do right now, but in the future we can potentially do that. I'm going to go ahead and add that function up here above the main menu. So let's go ahead and add a comment. think we'll just do it this way. There's a number of different ways we could do this. I think for right now, just because I'm not sure of the level of everyone's JavaScript knowledge, I think this is going to be the easiest or most readable way to add these in. I actually do this in my other plugins because I want people to be able to open my other plugins up and look at the code and understand it pretty easily, even if it's maybe not the most up-to-date way to do certain things. So at this point, we're just going to have it return just so that we don't get any errors. Okay, so the other thing that we're going to need to do is when we go ahead and load that project and add these two additional menu items, we're going to have to add additional click listeners. So we can just, again, fire that here. And then just realize that. So same thing. I might go back and change this. I'm not sure I'm happy about doing it this way. Okay, let's just check and make sure that we haven't broken anything. Go back, restart Pinegrow. GitHub, we've got our 3 items. Open project. Have our 5 items. Go ahead and close that project. Back to 2, and no errors have been thrown. All right. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap up. I have to get to some other items today. I'd like to do some more coding. So what are we going to do next time? Next time we'll actually add our different click listeners. That's going to cause us to need to add some additional functions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 functions for each of our menu items. So we'll set them up this very similar way here, just to have placeholders for them until we get back to adding the actual code we want in there. And then I guess the other thing that we'll do is maybe jump over into Pinegrow itself and design our settings modal, and then we will bring in the code once we set up the click listener for this GH settings menu item to bring that modal up. And probably we'll also talk about saving those the variable, and just in looking again at how Pinegrow sort of handles things, and thinking a little bit about how much security we need. I think I'm just going to go ahead and save both the username and the authorization token unencrypted within local session storage. So basically, if you look, Pinegrow doesn't clear local session storage. Like, local session storage always stays populated, as far as I can tell. It doesn't clear that unless you go out of your way to deliberately clear that local session storage. If you do go out of your way within the dev tools, or if you uninstall and reinstall Pinegrow, and clear out that local session storage. Not even sure it would clear it out then, at any point. Basically, you'll find that your license is not active, and any settings that you had put in as far as what code, what font you're using in your code editor, what theme you're using in your code editor, that's all going to go away, and you'll have to re-enter that. So Pinegrow is actively using that session storage. My other thought on session storage, the local storage, is not session storage, local storage. My other thought is that we don't have to bother to encode our authorization token, because all that local storage isn't going anywhere. It's not active on the web. There's no way anybody can sort of read that outside of our own Pinegrow session. So I don't think it exposes a security loophole to sort of have that. The only way it would expose a security loophole is if you were using Pinegrow on a publicly accessible computer that other users had a reason to go into and look, be able to look through your personal Pinegrow copy. And I think that's going to be a very rare case. I think everybody pretty much has their own Pinegrow that they're going to deal with. So, all right. So I guess the last thing that we have to do is just really quickly jump in here to our source control. Go ahead and add a message. So this is going to guess. I mean, I'm kind of breaking one of the sort of rules of GitHub, which is to make every single commit only be a single item being altered. In this case, I'm also adding those functions in to fire the click list, or to add the click listeners. But I'm not going to be able to make a long enough commit message for that. So I'm just going to go ahead and, just add that. I didn't stage anything, but I just hit, in my case, Command Enter. In a PC, I think it should be Control Enter. And then it'll ask if I want to stage those. So just say yes. Everything's now staged. And then I can just push it right on up, and hopefully it doesn't give me an error. All right, and so that's it. Please comment, reach out to me. Let me know if what I'm doing is useful to all of you out there. Subscribe and comment. Thanks a lot.